Hello, everyone, and welcome to CreativePro, the how-to resource for design professionals. I'm Kara Plichinich, and today we are going to be talking about one of those things that designers often run into. You can't really avoid it, and that is QR codes. And honestly, sometimes, most of the time, they're pretty boring, right? But they don't have to be. They don't have to just sit there and be black and boxy and do their job. So they could actually be branded. They could be illustrated. They could be hidden inside designs and really turned into something that could even stand on its own as a little piece of art. So that is what we are going to be diving into today, how to take QR codes from purely functional and actually make them creative. It's going to be loads of fun. So here are the things we're going to be talking about. If you're not terribly familiar with QR codes and how to generate them, I'm going to walk you through that, and we will talk about several different tools for doing so. We're mostly going to be working in InDesign for that, but I will show you loads of tools for everything from like super simple, straightforward QR code to really imaginative generative AI versions of stuff. So we'll talk through all of that. We're going to look then at building QR codes in Photoshop and the fun we can have over there. And then we'll take it into Illustrator, and I'll show you some stuff that I was playing around with in preparation for this that is really fun. And so one of the things that I love most about working with QR codes is the completely like non-traditional ways that you can use them. So we'll talk about that. And I have some Easter eggs hidden in here for you. I'll show you some generative AI tools and also some possibilities for really experimenting with QR codes in a tactile, hands-on way. So it's going to get crazy in here. Yeah, by the end of this, you're going to know how to create QR codes, whether that's in InDesign or a bunch of other tools, and how to be creative with them without breaking them. So let's pop over to the chat and see what we have here. It's so fun to see familiar faces joining us. Um, I love this. Rosemary says that she's excited and didn't even know creative QR codes was a thing. So welcome, Rosemary. It's so good to see you here. Steve, I had said, what's the coolest QR code that you've ever seen? And Steven said, we're about to find out. So if you have seen any wild, really cool QR codes out there in the world, pop them in the chat and I would love to see them. We also have a question about there being a replay. And yes, this video, after we're done live today, this will just live on YouTube. So you can come back and watch it anytime. Lorraine says, they're new to this, so keep it at a 101 level. Yeah, I feel you. Down below, I will say below this video, I put in a bunch of links. So we have on CreativePro's website, we have an amazing resource of articles about everything you could ever think of. And there's a number of them in there about QR codes, everything from super basic stuff to how to use data merge with QR codes in InDesign to like batch make them, which I am not getting into today because that is like not my thing. But it is possible. And so there are how-to links for all of those articles for Creative Pro members to have access to. So you can find those below this video. And if you're just randomly like, I don't even really get what QR codes are, there is also a link below to a YouTube video from Veracium, I forget now, whatever it's called, a YouTube channel. I can't think of it right this minute, but I watched it and it was a fascinating story of how QR codes came into existence and how like it's all connected to Morse code and binary and then barcodes, which are just like one-dimensional uh Morse code. It was amazing. And then that gets into like the math and the science and the stuff I can't even explain. So if you want to geek out on like how QR codes came to be and actually what all the little dots mean in the matrix of QR codes, it was fascinating, but it also made my brain hurt. um, but I linked to it below in case you also want to check it out. Okay, so before we start designing everything, we should probably talk about what those little squares are and how we can really work with them. So there's some things that we need to keep in mind because they are a little bit picky. So once you create a QR code, you have to know some stuff when you're using it, especially if you're going to get in there and get creative with it so you don't break it. So let's pop over to InDesign here, and I have a little lesson set up for us. Here we go. And I'm going to pop on and join you. Okay, so here's some things we want to keep in mind when we're working with QR codes. So, like in design, in all of design, contrast is an important thing. So, that's why you will often see QR codes just black and white because it's simple and clean and easy to read, right? The whole idea of the QR code is that we are taking information. It could be any number of things, and we'll look at that too. But we're taking that information and we're putting it in this little pictograph that can be scanned with smartphones. And in order for them to be seen by the camera on the smartphone, it has to have a certain amount of contrast. That said, I have found, and I will show you, some shockingly readable QR codes that I would not think had enough contrast, but it did. So we'll come to that too. But generally speaking, we need to have a fair amount of contrast. There's also this section here in the QR codes. Maybe you have realized this, but these squares, I'll zoom in here so you can see, these square things are referred to as eyes. And you'll notice there are 3 big ones, and then there's typically another little one here. And this is the 4th eye. It's kind of a tinier one. And the purpose of the eyes is that it helps the scanner sort of register itself and line things up properly. This little 4th eye is actually one of the ways that you're able to scan a QR code even like slightly from the side. So those 3 big eyes and the 4th little eye, they help make the code readable even in less ideal situations. So generally speaking, we don't want to mess with the eyes a whole ton because that's part of how the code itself gets recognized. Other things to keep in mind are that proportion and size and placement matter. So we can't be squishing our QR codes. Surprisingly, I found that it's not perfectly square as you would think. So I don't know. I find that surprising. But either way, you can't just decide you're going to squish your QR code. That doesn't work. It also needs to be big enough to be recognized. So you also want to keep in mind where this QR code is going to show up, right? Like, is it going to be on a giant billboard? Is it going to be on a screen if you're doing a presentation in a conference room or a ballroom or something? And you want people to be able to scan it from their seats with their phone? You have to think about the size and also the placement. So I have this QR code down here, like uncomfortably towards the bottom of this slide or this frame because obviously design rules still apply, but also you're going to find that QR codes get used in all kinds of ways, right? Like in the real world. So if you are at an art gallery, for example, or a museum, and there are QR codes that people are intended to scan, you have to think about where you're putting it. Like, don't put it in a weird place that the users are going to have to like bend weird or scrunch down, or put it in a way that like they can never get a clear shot of it because traffic or people or something is passing in front of it all the time. So you might need to raise it up. These are all just kind of the standard things you want to think about when you're working with QR codes. You also need to give it breathing room. So this is why we generally see QR codes with a white border around it. It just kind of helps clear everything out so that the camera and the scanner app, or just the camera app, can sort of find it in the wild. That said, I experimented with some really ridiculous sort of QR camouflage that I'll show you shortly, and you can kind of push it here. But if you're going to do that, I think you just want to make sure you're being intentional about it. All right. And the other thing you want to keep in mind is that you've got to really test. Because you never know what might work when you're like sitting at your computer, may not work when it's printed on paper or showing up in the real world, or when it's 30 feet in the air, or I don't know, 500 yards away, or I don't know. You always have to test. And while I was making the examples I'm going to share with you, I had a lot of fun trying to break them. And then I would actually just sit with my phone and point my camera at my screen, and I would try changing colors or changing scale until it either broke or it suddenly was scannable. So I don't know. It was just kind of an interesting process. I really enjoyed this, but kind of not in the ways you might think. So let's talk about the tools for just generating QR codes. All the usual suspects, right? Like you can create QR codes with Adobe Express, Canva. There's a well-known app called QR Code Monkey, or website QR Code Monkey, which I think I read somewhere just got acquired by somebody, but I don't know. But if you search QR Code Monkey, you will find it. Bitly, you can make QR codes in. You can make QR codes directly in Chrome. There's this site called QRBTF. I don't remember what that stands for, but that is a generative AI site specifically for making QR codes. So I'll show you some things that I created with that as well. Although I didn't have as much play with it as I would have expected. But anyway, Unicode, and of course in InDesign. So there are just all kinds of tools, right? So you don't have to be stuck with any particular one. There's lots of ways to do it. The important thing is how much flexibility each of these tools lets you have. Like pretty much all of them will give you a few ways you can customize your QR codes. Um, Others will give you a lot more. Like you can, on some of these, like QR Code Monkey is a really good one, I think, that lets you change the shape of those eyes. So they don't always have to be squares. They can be circles. They can be kind of these, I don't know, I call them petal shapes. So there's lots of different shapes they can be. You can change, of course, the colors. Some of them, like QR Code Monkey, will let you upload a logo, and it'll put the logo in the center, following rules for ways you can do that without breaking the scannability. So some of these will let you make all of those kinds of customizations. You can even change the shape of the little squares. So instead of looking like Minecraft, like square pixels, some of them will let you turn those into starbursts, or just rounded shapes instead. So there's a lot of room for play there. And QR Code Monkey lets you do a lot of that. And I don't even know if they have a paid, they probably do, but whenever I've used it, I've used a free version. So I don't know. But that's one I would recommend highly, I guess, if you want to have some fun with it, but you don't want to like take it into your own hands in InDesign, Photoshop, or Illustrator, then I would suggest QR Code Monkey is a good place to start. Okay. So I'm going to show you how we do this in InDesign. And I guess I should say, let's go back to this really quick, to these different tools. One thing to know about some tools versus other tools is some tools will only give you like a little JPEG of your QR code, and others will give you the vector information. So obviously, depending how you want to use that QR code or how you intend to manipulate it after it's created, then you would probably want to get your hands on the vector version. So just keep that in mind. I don't know that all of these different tools make the vector version available. All right, so let's talk about just basic QR code creation in InDesign. I should tell you, there's like 9 different things you can generate with the QR code, like 9 different kind of formats of things that you can have it do. InDesign only does 5 of the things. So that's what we're going to focus on today. But they are the really standard, typical, useful stuff. So for example, I'll show you how to make a hyperlink. So it's really easy here in InDesign. We just go up to the object menu and then we're going to choose generate QR code. And I created a little keyboard shortcut just so I wasn't having to mouse my way up here 100 times while I'm demoing this today. Because this is also how you edit an existing QR code. So object, generate QR code. And over here, it's going to ask us what type of QR code do we want to make. So let's start with a web hyperlink. So maybe we want to have this go to CreativePro's website. So I would type https blah doody blah creativepro.com. All right, and then I'm just going to click OK. And I get a little loaded cursor. So I'm just going to come over here and click. Whoa, and it comes in huge. Let's undo that because that's really too big for right now. So instead of just clicking, I'm going to click and drag. And now I'm drawing out my little QR code. And you'll notice that it lands here with a transparent frame. So that's great. Like we could just leave it like this. If I was gonna print this and put it on a box somewhere, you know, this is fine. It's readable. It's black on this blue background. I think that would be fine. You could probably point your camera at it right now and it would work. So I'm going to try that if my camera will cooperate. So I'm pointing at it and yep, it is coming up and telling me it's going to go open creativepro.com. So perfect. But of course, if we do want that white box behind it for even more contrast and readability or scannability, then we can simply select this and we'll just add a fill to the frame. So I'm going to go to my fill settings up here and I'm just going to choose paper. And now we have this nice little QR code. And the cool thing is that in InDesign, this is a vector file. So I'm going to eventually be copying and pasting this out of InDesign and into Photoshop. All right, but let's talk also about how we would make a QR code that is plain text. So we would go back to the object menu and again, choose generate QR code. I'm going to deselect that. Is it selected? No. Okay. We'll go up here. Object, generate QR code. And I guess it's just remembering what we've just done. So that's nice. But this time, let's make plain text. And I was, I don't know, sort of disappointed to realize the way that this works, but I guess it makes sense. I thought if you set it to plain text that it would be just like opening, I don't know what, a text document or something. And I don't know why, but I thought that was really fun for like gaming or like geocaching, or I don't know. I was trying to think of all these clever ways that I could like have fun with that. But instead, what it does when you select plain text is it will, when you scan it, it will launch your default search, and it will search for those words. So if I type cute puppies and we set this to plain text and I click OK, and now I click and drag to make another little QR code in here. And again, let's give it a white fill just because. So now if you point your phone camera at this, it will launch whatever. In my case, it launches Google and it searches for those words for cute puppies or whatever. So if you want to try that while it's on the screen, you can pull out your phone and do that. I'll give you a minute shortly to play with these. But the other option is to create a text message. So that's kind of fun. We could go back to Object, Create, or Generate QR code. This time, let's choose text message. And you actually, I learned a lot while I was playing with this. It's asking you to input a phone number. So for example, like maybe you are mailing out RSVP cards and you want people to like text you an RSVP response. You could put your own phone number there and a message, and then people could scan it. And what it does is it'll open their Messenger app in their phone and it'll create a new text message with the phone number that you've designated here. And you could even pre-fill a message that you want. What I have also found is I'm like, well, what if you don't know? Like, what if I was like, okay, you guys, I'm going to make this QR code to remind you to, I don't know, tell your person that you love them. So maybe I don't know the number. I'm just going to put something generic here. So maybe if I type your person and then a message like, just a reminder that I love you. If we generate this and you scan it, if you have spaces, any just empty space characters in the phone number here, it ends up rendering this message as gibberish. It's kind of weird. So I found that if you type whatever you want to type in here, if you just have like a hyphen instead of a space character, then you can type a message in here. And when it pops up in the person's phone app, instead of a phone number, it'll just say this, and then people can edit it. So I'm going to go ahead and click create, and I'm going to draw this frame here, and there we go. So if you want, you can try scanning this really quickly, point your camera at it, and it should pull up your text app on your phone and prompt a message that says, just a reminder, I love you. And you can change the phone number that you want to send that to. Or you could pre-populate it with, you know, something specific if you wanted. But I kind of think that's fun. So anyway, this is the gist of how it works. So every different kind of QR code that you want to create, you designate it in this window when you click Generate QR code. So you can also generate a QR code that's going to send an email, or you can generate a QR code that has like your contact information in it, or, you know, your business's contact or whatever. So those are pretty fun and cool. I will point out, actually, I'm going to move to here. So here I have one that I pre-populated. These are different. Every single one of these does something different, goes somewhere different, and does something. Some of them have jokes and they're kind of funny. So you can try and scan these now, but we're going to keep moving because, oh my gosh, it's already been a long time. So we're going to keep moving. So you can either come back in the replay and try and see all this, or grab a quick screenshot now and then point your phone at all of these things later. I promise they're all G-rated. There's nothing I don't know, suitable in there, but there's some fun, like there's a designer joke, there's some silly stuff. So have fun with that. You can test those out later and see what they all do. I wanted to talk about how we edit these and play with the color, etc. So let's do that really quick. You want to make sure the good thing about doing this in InDesign is that it is vector. So let's go down here. I have some examples. So once you make a QR code, how do you edit it? Maybe we want to change the color. That's like level 1 of customization. So anytime you've got a QR code that you then want to edit, you can simply select it and go back to that object menu under generate. Am I in the right place? Generate QR code. Oh, here. Now it says edit QR code because it's already generated. But anyway, that'll pop the same window back up. And maybe you had a typo in the URL that you need to fix. Or here under this color tab, you can simply choose a different color. Let's say green. And then when we click OK, it will change the color. So here you can see I've simply changed the color to pink. Here's the same thing where I've changed the color to pink, and then I also just added a fill. So just like earlier, instead of the paper colored fill, I added this chartreuse color. Okay, so what you're generating in InDesign when you generate that code is you're generating like the little vector squares, and then you can change that color in the QR generator window. And the frame itself, the fill for that frame can be whatever color you want. Or down here, you can see that I actually just made a square that I put a graphic in, and then I just dragged my QR code that had a transparent background, and I just dragged it on top. And so you can have some fun stuff like this. But you can also, you might be asking then, well, what if I wanted this gradient to be in the QR code? Okay, well, now you're getting fancy. And I made this little, this makes me nervous every time I demo it. I don't know why, because it's fiddly in InDesign. But I made this little demo to walk you through how we do this. And I'm going to move my face up here so I'm not in the way. But so here's how we can take this up to the next level. So I'm going to grab these 3 things and I'm going to make copies over here. So I can work over here and you'll understand the components in a minute. So in InDesign, this is a little trickier. It's pretty easy and self-explanatory in Photoshop, but we're going to do it here and we'll look at Photoshop next. Okay, so how do we do this? We're building a little QR code sandwich. So we have our QR code up here. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this QR code to punch a hole through this frame right here. And then we're going to reveal this underneath. Does that make sense? So this is going to punch a hole through this. We're going to stack them all on top of each other. This will punch a hole through here, and then through those holes, we will see this in the background. Here's how we do it. Step 1, we need to grab this thing and set the opacity in the effects panel in InDesign. We need to set the opacity of this to 0. So I'm going to come up here with this selected. You can open your effects panel from the window menu under effects, or I have a little option up here to get this as well, but let's do it this way. Let's go to window effects. Okay, so in this panel, we'll drag it over here. In this panel with the QR code selected, I can drag the opacity to 0. Now it just looks gone. That's okay. I'm going to drag it down and put it on top of this. And I want to make sure that it's actually on top, like in the stacking order, that now invisible QR code needs to be on top. Then step 2 says, okay, place the QR code on top of the frame fill. We have done that. And now we're going to group it with this frame fill. So I'm going to throw a selection across both of these things. And now in that same effects panel, I'm going to go down and click Knockout Group. And nothing happens. What have I done? Oh, I think I forgot to group it. There we go. You actually have to group it, not just say the magical words. So I pressed Command or Control G to group it. Now we can knock out group. And now you see what's happening is the QR code has punched through the frame. And so it looks white because it's on a white background. But if we move it down here, ta-da! Now we have this cool gradient in the background. Okay, now obviously we would need to make sure that this fill color has enough contrast. Probably doesn't, but I feel like I tested. Oh, it works. Okay, I tested it, it still works. But I'm looking at that and I'm thinking like that contrast is not enough, but apparently it is. So you never know until you test this stuff out. Okay, so this is another cool way to level up your QR codes. Not only can you change the color of the code itself, the frame that it's in, but also you can like put photographs into the QR code. Let's try doing this one more time just so we get the idea of it. And in this case, I'm going to set the fill color here, the frame, just to paper. So it's going to look like there is no frame. But there has to be in order for the QR code to punch through it. So same thing. So I'm going to take my QR code. We'll go to our effects panel and lower the opacity to 0. I'm going to drag it on top of this frame, select both of them, Command or Control G to group. Then we're going to click Knockout, and we don't see anything happening because we have transparency through a white background. But if I drag this over here, oops, cancel, and I get out of wonderful mode, you can see what's happening, right? So here's our transparent. If we put it on top of this, we'll see through it like that. So let's take it, and now we can put it like on top of this cool painting, and now we have this. How cool is that? And it's totally, you could scan that right now. That will 100% work. And I just think it's really pretty. Okay, so those are some of the like simple, straightforward ways to do this. Let me check in on the chat and see how everybody's doing because I haven't been able to read all of this while I'm ordering. Yes, Steven says, I love Veritasium. I never know how to say that, right? It is a great YouTube channel. So their video about like how QR codes came to be and what they mean and how they work is like, oh, hi, Erica. Good to see you. Erica says, yes, this video will be right here afterwards. For those of you who were wondering, it's live now, and then it just lives on as a YouTube video. That's so cool, right? But now's your chance to interact and ask questions. So Sydney says, I found one thing to look for is when you're using a website to make one, make sure the fine print doesn't say they expire. Oh yeah, that is good point. So some of the ones like that you pay for generating QR codes, they will come with tracking abilities. So you can track whatever, how many times it's been used and all of that kind of stuff. And some of them will be, what's the word? Like an evergreen. There was a word for it and I forgot what it was. But basically, it's editable. So like you can print your QR code and put it out on your products or whatever. And depending on the service or how you made that QR code, you could actually update what it points to after the fact. I don't know how that works, but that was like next level. So some people, yeah, sometimes they only let you make temporary ones and then you might have to pay or something, but not with Canva or Adobe Express, or of course in InDesign. Which one makes it? So the question is, which one makes it in a simplified shape? I'm not sure I know what you're asking here, but I really like the QR code monkey. I think that gives you a lot of options for really clean and simple, minimal QR codes. So Rosemary says, the plain text QR code on my Android phone launched my Samsung Notes app and put the words cute puppies in the notes. Oh, interesting. That's kind of what I was hoping it would do on iPhone too, because I think it's fun for like games and puzzles, and I don't know. I like to find weird ways to use this stuff. Um, so it did what I was hoping it would do on Android, but on iOS, it launched my search. So I thought I was giving everyone cute pictures of happy baby puppies, but that's good to know, Rosemary. Thank you for sharing that. Rosemary discovered my secret joke in one of those QR codes. Oh, yes. And Sharon says that feature that I was saying about like evergreen QR codes is called dynamic QR codes. Thank you, Lorraine. Or thank you, Sharon, for that. And this question is, can I put my QR code in a recycle symbol in Canva? Probably. I don't know. I'm going to show you how you can really mess with this stuff in Photoshop and Illustrator next. And then I'll show you some other cool things. And I don't have an exact answer to that, but I would think so. You can put your QR code pretty much anywhere as long as you know how to use whatever app you're using to do all that. So in Photoshop Elements, so here's the thing, when you're creating these QR codes, you can take them, like once you have them from wherever you created them, even whether if that's InDesign or Adobe Express or whatever, once you have them and you download them, then you can use them in any app that you want. So whether that's Photoshop Elements or I don't know, PicMonkey or Affinity something, or I don't know, all the apps I can't even think of and remember. Any app that can import a JPEG or a PNG or an SVG or whatever file format you end up downloading your QR code in, you can then play with it. Okay, so let me show you some examples of that here using InDesign, and we're going to get into Photoshop now. So let me go back to our our basic QR code. Okay, so here is this QR code. I'm going to get rid of the fill. So what's nice again about the way InDesign does this is that it is vector. So if I want to take this vector QR code and I want to bring it into Photoshop, I can just copy and paste it. So I'm just going to press Command or Control C, and let's go into Photoshop, and I'm going to show you how I made this. But before we do that, I just want to show you how we paste this in. So now here I am in a document inside Photoshop. I'm just going to paste, and here it comes in, and it comes in as a vector smart object. So now I can do whatever I want to do with it here in Photoshop. It is vector, so if you want it to be pixels, you'd have to rasterize it. So you could right click on it, make it the size you want, and you could rasterize it here. Whoops, this way. But you shouldn't really need to. We'll look at this in a minute. But you could scale it. So because it's vector, we could come in here and make it giant. Whatever you need to do with it, it is coming in as a vector smart object. And so if you double click on this to open that smart object, it will actually open in Illustrator. So, all right. Hopefully that is making sense. Let me show you now. Here I have one that I already put in here. It's the same code, actually, I think. Oh no, it's a different one. That's okay. It doesn't matter. But so here's the code that I've pasted in here. Now, let's see how we can have some fun with it with a photograph. So I have this image here that I downloaded for free from Adobe Stock's free collection. And I chose this image for a couple of reasons because one, it's on a black background. So it doesn't have to be that way, but I just wanted to keep this as clean as possible, but you don't have to have it on a black background. And I loved the dynamic pose of the subject in this photo because I wanted to have them like popping out of the QR code. So what I did was I placed the QR code on my canvas. I added this image, and then I wanted to make sure I was placing it in a way that was going to work. So I temporarily lowered the opacity of this layer in my layers panel. You can just tap like 5 on your keyboard to lower it to 50% opacity. Or if you like the, I guess, hands-on way of doing that, you can come over here and drag the slider for that layer. And so now I was able to position this where I wanted it within my QR code. And initially, I was worried about interfering with those eyes, right? So I was like, oh, I don't think I want anything extending out of the QR code at the point where the eyes are. So I was going to have her jumping out like this so that like she wasn't interfering with the eyes, but I found that I didn't have to be that careful. So I wanted her here because then she was popping out on 3 sides, and I just thought that was visually more exciting. So play with it. Know that the eyes are really important, but that doesn't mean you can't experiment. And if things aren't working, and I'll show you some examples where they don't work, you can finagle it until you get it to work. This is all just like playing a game and testing to see what works and what doesn't. All right, so the next thing I did was restored her back to full opacity. So I'm just tapping 0 to get 100% opacity, or of course you can come over here and drag the slider back. And then we're going to clip her to the QR code, but then we also want some bits to pop out. And so for the bits that we want to pop out, and there's many ways to do this, I just chose to do it this way. I made a copy of the subject. So before we clip her to the QR code, we're going to select her by choosing, I always just tap W for one of the wizard-like selection tools because it brings along this button to select subject. So I'm literally just clicking this button and Photoshop's going to select our subject. And then I simply pressed Command or Control J to copy her into her own layer, just like this. So I'll get rid of the other one. So we'll do this together and you'll get how it works. So now I've got her here. Let's hide her for a minute. Let's go back to the version that has the background. And what we want to do is make it so that this image only shows up where the QR code is. And we do that with a clipping group. So I'm going to hold down Alt or Option and hover my cursor in this little in-between space. And can you see what my cursor is doing? I call this the Gonzo cursor because it's a block and then it has a little arrow pointing over and down. And from the side, it kind of looks like Gonzo from the Muppets. It kind of looks like his profile. I don't know. So when you see the Gonzo cursor, you know you're in the right spot, and then you can just click and you will see that this layer now gets like shrink wrapped or clipped to the layer below. So now it only shows up where there is a QR code. So that looks pretty cool. It's sort of an abstract thing all by itself. But we need to also have the bits where she's sticking out. So that is why we have this other layer. I'm just going to get rid of this so we don't confuse anyone. So now we have her on top. But of course, if we just leave her on top, then we can't see the QR code and it will not scan. I have tried it. It doesn't work. So we need to have her in the QR code and her outside of the QR code, but not in front of the QR code. So then I simply grabbed the marquee tool. So I'm pressing M for the rectangle marquee, and I'm just going to select. And again, I was like, there's got to be like a cleaner, perfect way of doing this. And probably there is, but I don't know. It didn't occur to me in the short time I was playing with this, but this works. So I've selected the QR code, and now I basically want to hide those parts of her. So a destructive way of doing this would just be to hit the delete key on your keyboard. If you, for some reason, don't like working with masks in Photoshop, you could just hit delete. But that's destructive and hard to edit later. We'd have to repeat all this. So instead of that, we are just going to, we're going to Alt or Option click on the mask button at the bottom of the layers panel. Okay, so you hold down Alt or Option with that selection active, and then you click the mask button, and that will hide the contents of the selection and leave everything out. And you can see that I kind of missed right here, and over here too, my selection was a little big. So maybe that's helpful. Like maybe if you have a situation where it's not reading, then maybe you want to try making that selection a little bigger. In my example, I found I could actually just have it right up to the edge. So if we want to tweak this mask, we'll want to unlink the mask from the subject, from the layer itself. And now I can just press Command or Control T. So in my layers panel, my subject is not selected. My mask is selected. I've pressed Command or Control T to bring up free transform. And now I can get in here and adjust this. If I was like 1 pixel too wide and I'm losing sleep over it, I can adjust that like so. And that is all it takes. And now is the moment of truth. Let's see if it scans. And it worked. It worked. Isn't that amazing? Even though she is busting out through the eye here and down here, and the little eye, the alignment eye here is fully filled in. And so I don't know, it works. So amazing. Let me show you some other examples of like kind of the same thing. Here's another example of the exact same setup. Again, I was trying to not have her breaking out through the eyes. And so I liked this photo because it was composed in such a way. If we, let me just show you what the photo looks. So this is the photo, right? So I was like, oh, perfect. I can have her popping out right between the eyes of the QR code. And this one works too. But I found, depending on the color of the background, there were some colors where it wouldn't read it. So you really have to play with that to make sure it's going to be readable. But I found that this color worked for whatever reason. So you just have to play with it. Here's another example where I don't know like how I feel about this, but I thought it was a good example of just like what to think about when you're doing this. So on one hand, it's kind of weird that we can't really see what's going on here. Like, I don't think I would create a composition like this unless this QR code was going to be really quite large, because otherwise it just looks weird. Like maybe you can't tell what the image actually is, and then you just see hands sticking out of the top. Like it looks weird. But I think that it has a hint of working visually. It is scannable, so that part works. But I like that eye is visible here. I think that is key because of just how I've positioned her. But I think if it was such that like we couldn't see any part of her face, then I think it might be too abstract, even though like it might scan, but like visually it would just look like a mess with arms coming out of the top. So I don't know. What do you think? Let me know in the chat. But I think like from a human standpoint, I think it was beneficial to have her eye showing, that her eye wasn't cut out by the QR code. It's there. So I think that was fun. And then I was like, ooh, I could see this like on a poster for a nightclub or something. Maybe it's called Pulse, and maybe that's like the whole poster is just this cool QR code and then it says Pulse. So I was also playing with like, well, what if I put the text on top of the QR code? What might that look like? And would it be like in a circle? And this worked. Like I could scan this with the text this tiny in the center, but I thought it like compositionally wise, I did not like how this looked. And I tested, and if I enlarge the text and that black circle any more than this, and the code became unscannable. So you can put logos and you can put things in the center, but there is a limit to how much of the code you can block before it becomes unreadable. So if you watch that Veritasium, whatever that YouTube channel is, it's really good. If you watch that video, you will learn about the redundancy that's built into the codes and how they're read, and it's so cool. And so that might help you understand like where those limits are as far as how you can scale things. I don't know. I watched it and I still didn't quite wrap my head around all of that. So I am still very much having to just test, but that's how it works. So in my dream world, we could like have text in here just completely like, who cares if we're blocking? I mean, like that would be kind of fun, but you can't, it won't read. So that's when I was like, okay, never mind. I'll put Pulse like on the side. So then it doesn't interfere and it's still there. And I think this is cool enough by itself to be a design. So if we like select all this, like, I mean, I don't know. I just think that's cool. Like if I saw that on a subway or a bus stop, poster or whatever, like I'd be like, ooh, I want to scan it. I love the colors. I love her dancing. And I don't know, it just seemed really fun. Okay, so here's an example of one that I could not get to work. I tried changing this color to everything I could think of and everything in between, and I could not get it to work. And I think it's because I don't know why. I tried moving the fish all around. I don't know if the white, like somehow I think the actual stripes of the fish and like the markings on the fish were making it unable to read this. So, I don't know. So it could be when you're problem solving this stuff, it could be that the background color needs a change. So in this case, I don't know, we can pick something very different. It still won't scan, at least on my phone. I couldn't get it to, nope, it just like won't see it. So that could be part of it. The other thing of it could be the positioning. Like maybe if I moved the fish, so we'd have to hide this and go back here and unclick it and drop the opacity down. Maybe if I moved the fish so like it's not, none of the like white stripy parts on its fins were overlapping any of the eyes. So maybe if I make it much smaller like this and bring that to 100%, and then I'd have to redo this, but let me see if that does it. I don't know. Nope. I don't know. This one, it just wasn't working. So I wanted to show you that because it's good to know. Here's some other examples where I have a QR code. Let me turn off all this stuff. I have a QR code and then I was like, can I just paint on my QR code? So I added this layer. It's just a blank layer that I also clipped, right, with the little gonzo cursor. So I held down Alt or Option and I clicked in between to get the little gonzo cursor. And that means you can just paint. So like if I grab a paintbrush and I have paint and now I can just come in here and maybe I should have a darker color so you guys can see. So I could just start painting things and it sticks to just the QR code because this layer is clipped or sort of shrink wrapped to that QR code. So I just randomly painted some stuff in here and I was like, that's kind of fun. Like I could see that on a cool something at like a museum gift shop. Like that just looks fun. Then I was like, ooh, what if I add texture to it? So I added another layer and again, I gonzoed it to the layers below, which in this case is the QR code, and we make that visible. And it's just a subtle texture with these dots. And this was an image of I'll show you. Let me switch it back to normal mode. It's just like a halftone illustration of a sky or something. And I changed the blend mode from normal to overlay and I clipped it here to give some texture to this. And then I was like, wait, what if we made it look like mosaic tiles? Erica, if you're still watching, I know you love mosaics. You could be mosaicing QR codes, and I'll get to that in a minute too. But so then I added this image of tile, and so it's like this, right? And this just comes again from Adobe Stock's free collection. So then I added this and clipped it to the QR code, and then you can play with blend modes and you get different effects. Oh, look at that. How fun. Like now it actually looks like this whole thing is tiled. So I just put it in here and I scaled it and I attempted to position it so that the tiles roughly line up with the size of the little squares, but I didn't get it exactly right, but it still works and it was fun. Then this was an experiment that failed, but it looks cool, but it doesn't scan because it's not really a QR code. Then I was like, well, hey, Photoshop, can you take this QR code and like generate it into a QR code made of coffee beans? And it did it. It did this, which is like a pretend QR code. It's not real. But it looks pretty. So I don't know, maybe there is a specific way to get AI to do that for you right here in Photoshop, but I didn't play with it long enough to figure that out. But I just wanted to show you, but I will show you some versions of AI stuff. Let's check the chat real quick and then we'll go to Illustrator. Oh, let's see. Jungle Juice says fun potential for stickers. I agree. Debbie says, why can't the top layer image just be placed behind the QR code layer? It could be behind the QR code. It depends what you're trying to do. Oh, wait a minute. It can't be behind because we need it to show up everywhere where the QR code isn't and not where the QR code is. But that said, there's a million ways to do things in Photoshop. So if you mask it differently and whatever, you could do that. You could also probably have the QR code do a knockout. I mean, there's a lot of ways you could do it. I was trying to do it in the most simple, like straightforward, not too fancy way so that it would just be accessible and understandable. But I am sure there are other ways to do it. Steven says, could you make the QR code shape a circle? I believe so. I don't know how that would work, like manipulating a square QR code. Steven, I don't know. I've not tried it. I wouldn't even know like how to do that without breaking it. But I do know that if you use QR code monkey, or if you search like QR code generator, you'll find a million of them. And some of them do just let you make the QR code a circle from the get-go. So yes, it's possible. Okay, let me now show you Illustrator, because this might really excite you or terrify you. I don't know. And I'm going to pop back over here, I believe. We'll see. Hopefully I don't get in the way. All right, so let me show you some things in Illustrator that might, for those of you that love Illustrator, this might be fun for you. So first of all, this QR code here in Illustrator, I simply copied and pasted from InDesign, okay? If you download a QR code from QR Code Monkey or Adobe Express or whoever, and they give you like an SVG file, then you could open that up and have the vector information here in Illustrator. Mine came from InDesign. Weirdly though, look what happens to it when we put it in Illustrator. Like, let me go into outline mode. This is the paths that we're getting. Isn't that interesting? I don't know how it decided where to do this, but it broke up all these pieces into blocks. Now, maybe there's something fun and creative you could do with this. I don't know. I stayed up so late last night, this morning, playing with this. I was having so much fun, and I only scratched the surface. And I've been like chewing on these ideas since last month's live stream. So it will take some time and experimentation. So I've shared some of what I've learned today with you, but I certainly don't know it all. And this is certainly not the limit of what you can do with this. But so here is the QR code. I pasted it in from InDesign, and then I went about uniting the inside bits here. Okay, so like I took the eyes and I grouped all of this. So here's the next version, because I don't want to do this all on camera. It will take forever. So I grouped stuff and united things so that the inside piece of the QR code was separate from the eyes. So I'm going to go over here now, and this is what I used in Illustrator. These are just the inside bits, so everything except the eyes. And then I took this and I made it into a pattern. Okay, so this is a little crazy, and I'll just show you what I did to spark your imagination, but it was a lot of fun. And you can hide the QR codes in a way that makes them more like an Easter egg, or a I don't know, like something to look for, which invites a whole fun discoverability and like gamification to this that I personally find really exciting. So what did I do? Okay, so the inner bits, the guts of the QR code are selected here. And then I just went to Object, Pattern, Make. And I don't know why it's telling me it can't make a pattern from this. I don't know. I must have clicked on something, but that's what I did. So I will say that pattern making in Illustrator is a whole other lesson, but I know that CreativePro has articles on the member website. And if you look at our YouTube channel, I know we've got videos about pattern making in Illustrator. So I'm going to spare us the time for that, because it's already been over an hour and I want to respect your time. But long story short, I generated a pattern from this QR code. I put it in a swatch here in my swatches panel, and look at this little picture of this kitten. And the kitten has a texture applied to it. And if we zoom in over here, the QR code is inside the kitten. So let me just show you how I did this. I'm going to pull this out. So I made a QR code that's made of QR code pieces, but it's not going to be like readable because they're scrambled, right? So in the pattern maker, I set it to, what's the option for like hexagonal by row? Whatever the bottom option is for like your tiling repeats, I chose the bottom one. And so it really just scrambled all of the stuff. And so this is what the pattern looks like. It's kind of just nothing. It's just gibberish. It's sort of just generic texture, which is why you can hide QR codes in it. And specifically, I made this texture from this QR code. So if I was doing this, I would make the texture, the pattern for the QR code I'm using. Because if we jump back over here really quick to InDesign and I just show you this screen really quick, you can see how different these QR codes look from one another. Like this one is really big, like simple, and then like this one is really busy, right? So their pattern is going to look different depending on the QR code. Anyway, so I generated a pattern. Then I took my original QR code, and this is now a group. So if I ungroup it, I hope it doesn't break into too many pieces. Yeah. So here's my original QR code. And it's the same color as the patterned QR texture over here. And then I simply added a frame behind it that's the same color, has the same fill as this cat. So this cat outline here, if I go to my appearance panel, it has two fills. It has the black fill, the background color, and then it has the pattern. So here's just the background by itself, and then it has the pattern on top of it. So I'm basically duplicating the same thing here. Here's the actual working QR code, and then I put that same background here behind it. And now I'm going to group it, and then I simply put it in here wherever I want to have it, and I just try and position it in a way that kind of doesn't look weird. So maybe maybe I want to nudge it up just a little, or maybe I need to scale it slightly to try and make it appear in here without too many seams. And you should know then that you can also scale the pattern in your artwork. So like what I did was when I put the pattern in here, once I got it in and I got the QR code where I wanted it, I scaled the pattern so that it visually fits with the QR code. So just to show you, if I go in here and select this, the cat, and then I went to my transform panel in Illustrator, and you go to the transform panel menu. You want to make sure that you're transforming the pattern only. And then you can come in here, and I'm holding shift and I'm just tapping the up arrow or the down arrow. You see how it scales the pattern? So I'm just trying to make it be roughly the same size as the QR code. And what's annoying is that while we are scaling it, we can no longer see the QR code. So when you do this, you have to have the QR code somewhere where it's not overlapping on your object, because you want to see both at the same time so you can make the pattern roughly the same scale as the QR code. Okay, so now I've screwed it up. Now we can see the QR code is bigger than the pattern. So I'm just going to undo until we get back to whatever size I had it, where it worked well. Okay. Oh my God, how much scaling did I do to this? There we go. All right. That is a lot. So obviously, if you're doing things this way, you are not trying to make the QR code really noticeable. It's kind of like people have to know to look for it, which I think is really fun. So here's another example where I did the exact same thing and I just put it in like the background, and you can see here's the actual QR code. and it's just sort of woven in. Um, and I don't know, maybe your pattern should include eyes to really make it blend in more. I don't know. You'd have to experiment. My thought was the only eyes I wanted to see were the eyes in the actual QR code, but maybe it's fun to include the eyes in the pattern, but then it might be harder when you try and scan it. It might be harder to recognize a real QR code. So I don't know. You'd have to experiment. So here's some other experimentations I did. So here's just the QR code by itself, and I'll go to my appearance panel, and I added a pucker and bloat to this. So again, this QR code's in two pieces, right? Because I separated the eyes and I forgot about the little one here. So that was probably part of my problem. But I treated the eyes differently than the guts, okay? So I just added pucker and bloat effect to both of them, and I think this is gorgeous. Like, how beautiful is this for just like wall art? And I was really hoping that it would scan because I was like, oh, I would have so much fun putting this everywhere. But this did not scan. This had a pucker and bloat setting of like 30%. And so then I was like, all right, well, how else could I try this? So then I went down here and I left the eyes alone, and I puckered and bloated just the guts. And I sat with my phone, like pointing at my screen, with the camera on, and I just lowered the pucker and bloat effect until my camera could scan it, and it looked like a value of 13%, maybe 14, but 13 or 14 is where it tipped over into being able to recognize it, which I just thought was really interesting. So that's what this is. So this should be scannable if we point yep, it works. And then I thought, well, what else can we do with those inner guts? So then I made a copy of that, and instead of pucker and bloat, what did I do to this? I don't even remember. Oh, I added a roughen filter. So here's just normal QR code. I applied the roughen effect to it, and this was scannable. So, wow, there are so many things that you can do. Let's pop in the chat, and then I'm just going to show you, and then I'm going to show you just a couple of examples of how you could take this farther. But then we'll be really done here. So I promise we won't be here for forever. This is so great. Let's see. Oh, yay. Thanks, Brad. Brad says we'll add these to the YouTube description. So he's probably linking to I'm assuming he's talking about the like Laura Coyle's pattern stuff on our YouTube channel. That would be good. That would be good to know. Yay. Yes. Znarv, I can't, Znarf Productions says, very cool. Glad I'll be able to view this again. Yay. Thank you, Brad. Brad has added the links to the pattern videos. Yay. Debbie says, OMG, it works. Yes. Very cool. Quad Derek says, hello from Norway. Hello. Cool stuff. Can you make a QR code look like not a QR code? You need those three corner things. Okay, that's actually a good question. And that leads me to my next thing that I'm going to show you there we go, if my computer cooperates. Okay, so let me show you some things. I was going to show you Express and Canva. You can do that. This is QR Code Monkey, and you can really get creative. Here's like different shapes you can use for your QR codes and QR Code Monkey, whatever. This is the one I was going to show you. This QRBTF.com. This is where you can make generative AI QR codes that really don't look a whole lot like QR codes. You can do some like stylized versions, And so when you go here, here's where you type in the URL you want to link to. And if you choose this first style, you can generate stuff. And I have some examples, and it was free for what I've done so far. So these are examples of QR codes that I generated using that AI tool site, whatever that is. How gorgeous is that? And so these were just random. I don't think I typed too many prompts. I think I just chose some of their preset styles. And then I started typing prompts like, messy paint kind of stuff. I don't remember what my prompts were. I couldn't figure out where to save it. Then I gave it some kind of prompt that was like, I wanted like paints. I wanted the QR code to be made of like paint splatter and creative stuff. And so it gave me this, which is really interesting. Like this one here looks like it's this eye in the bottom left is like a note, like a spiral bound notebook. How cool is that? So I just reran the same prompt multiple times. And now I forgot, it's been a while since oh my God. I mean, this works. Like you can scan this with your phone right now and it will take you to CreativePro's website. Isn't that cool? I don't know. And so then I made this. This is apparently also, I mean, these are all Creative Pro, like working QR codes from that QR BTF, whatever that thing was. What else? Yeah. So that will answer the question about like, can you make it not look like a QR code? I think so. I don't know if you get only so many free. I didn't pay for whatever this is, so I don't know if I ran out of prompts, like credits or what. But if you want that kind of fantastical AI generative version, that's this first style here. And then, of course, there's all kinds of other styles, and you can play with it and have a lot of fun. These are just some of the other things. So then I wanted to show you, we have this really great article, and I linked to this below. This is an article on Creative Pro's website from Maya Lim, and it is brilliant and fantastic, and it's all about creative QR codes. And so I was going to show you some examples in here because she pulled really excellent examples. So I just wanted to share these. I mean, wow. Like, look at this. Like somebody drew like a little monsters. They took the QR code and like cartoonified it. And it works. I tested it. That's amazing. So, I don't know how you even like I don't know what the limits are as far as like what you can do here and get away with it. So I'm not a gifted illustrator to try that, but I wanted to show you, maybe you are. These are all so cool. Then here's some examples. Here's one similar to like what I did. And then here's where some people keep the QR code and, they just kind of added bits outside of it. So they're playing with the framing of it rather than the inside of the QR code. So you can have some fun with that. I mean, these are so cool. Like, I love this. People are brilliant. So these are some more examples. Here's another example that's like just basically putting a pattern in there, like what we saw. These have words and letters inside of them. So this one looks like an overlay, like this blue bit is like text that's on top of it that if you squint, you can read. This one, the tiles are actually made of letters. Same with this. So I don't know, like you can really just have so much. I had so much fun playing with this. Here's this one, I guess, had an animation into it at some point. I don't know that we're seeing it in this form, but here's another situation where someone has illustrated around it to kind of disguise the QR code. Here's some more examples where, again, the QR code is kind of built into the design. This is fun. So Yeah, and here's some more like kind of AI generative versions. So, and here's some, this is where I was looking at these and I couldn't tell what I was looking at. I was like, I don't get it. There's a bunch of like garbly gook and then there's a QR code slapped in the middle of it. This one is nice because it kind of blends in a little more. And then I was looking at this and I realized, oh, that is just basically a pattern fill. And I could see that it looked like the actual bits of the QR code. And so that's where I was like, oh, we could turn those guts into a pattern. And so that's what I was trying in Illustrator. Here's something where this is like an infographic, right? So like charts and data, and then the designer has a QR code at the top, so you could like scan for more information on any one of these, I guess. Here's where it's been just built into an illustration. Here's some cool barcodes. So one of the things you learn when you watch that video is that QR codes are basically 2D barcodes. Um, and barcodes are basically Morse code stretched out. Like, you got to watch that video. It's amazing. Okay, so then I was going to show you, aside from all of this computer computer digital ways of doing all of this, you can also make like tangible QR codes that are so much fun. So, for example, a zillion years ago, one time, I stitched a QR code in cross stitch. Like, I made the QR code and it's basically a chart, right? A graph, a matrix. And I converted that into a cross stitch pattern. And I cross stitched this little like 2-inch cross stitch design and I framed it and I gave it to someone as a joke. And then when they scanned it, it was like a joke. So they didn't know what it was. That's also part of the fun of QR codes, is like you don't know where it's taking you until you scan it. And so I just find that utterly delightful. And so here are a few other things that you can do with QR codes to have some fun. If you're crafty and all of that. So like I just searched Etsy for QR code pattern, whatever. So here's an example where somebody crocheted a QR code design into a pillow. So there it is. And you could scan it and then go to whatever this is, I guess an episode of some show or whatever. So that's one idea. Here's a QR code. This is a cross stitch pattern. This one generates a message that says that lovely quote that a lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part. So maybe you have someone who could appreciate this message, and it's kind of like a little subtle way that they could put that on their desk and I guess just help them stay calm when they want to scream that at people. Instead, they have a quiet QR code to deliver the same message. I just think that's funny. Here's more like embroidery versions. Here's a pattern that would let someone share their Wi-Fi information. So like the point is, there's a lot of different ways that you could do this, and they're so cool. So let me see in the chat, what are you noticing? What questions do you have? I love Rosemary says, that's amazing, and it did work, right? I know, it's like, I can't believe that's real. And I think when you use a QR code that makes people think that can't possibly be a QR code, then they're like, is it? And then they're gonna scan it, right? Because they want to know. So I just think that's so fun. Yeah, so Quad Derek says the next step is using per given photos like company logos. Yes. And that is possible. I think I have some, let me see if I have them before I thought I had some examples that I was going to show you. But I mean, if you just search for like creative QR codes, you'll find all kinds of things. I don't know where I put those. I kind of had a mess of, yeah, I lost my commercial ones, but there are some cool examples of like Starbucks and UPS and KFC logos, and it's really fun. So Jungle Juice says, what is the link for this site? Which site are you talking about? CreativePro.com. You can visit us over there if you're looking for all of our cool lessons and articles and magazine stuff. I'm not sure which one you are asking for. So pop it in the chat if you are still here. Maybe you were looking for this one, QRBTF. Maybe that's the one that you were looking for. Let me pop back over. There we go. QRBTF.com was that AI generator one. So yeah, guys. Well, it looks like you are enjoying this. I am happy to share this stuff. I had a lot of fun digging around and playing with this and making and breaking QR codes. And yeah, it's wild. So it's not this locked up thing that it seems like it is. You can get in there and tinker. So I invite you to do exactly that and have some fun with it. And yeah, thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed this and you are into all things Creative Pro, come see us in Nashville this summer at Creative Pro Week. It's going to be happening June 29th through July 3rd. And I'm going to be there. It's going to be a lot of fun. And you can save some money on your registration using the code livestream at creativepro.com/events. So yay, everybody. Well, thank you so much. I'm having my face all over the place today. Sorry for that. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you had fun and you learned something new. And it's always great to have you here. We do these every month here at Creative Pro. So let me know if you have any suggestions for a live stream that you'd like to see. You can drop it in the chat or comment below this video. And until next time, happy QR code creating. Yeah, I'll see you later. Bye, guys.